Hey there and welcome back to the channel. So in the last video we looked at the overview of clean architecture with Node.js and Express, and in today's video we'll be looking at how to implement this architecture by building a simple to-do app. So here in VS Code I'm about to create a new Node.js and Express application. In this project we are going to use MongoDB and TypeScript. Now you don't need to be a TypeScript wizard to follow along. We are just going to use basic types here. Also, if you are not familiar with MongoDB, you can use any other database of your choice. So in my terminal, I'm going to initialize a new Node.js application. So npm init-y, and this is going to create a package.json file for me. Right now, we need to install the dependencies that we need for this application. And I'm going to install Express. And because I'll be using MongoDB, I'm also going to install Mongoose, which is the MongoDB ORM. And then finally, Zod. So Zod is a schema validation library that will allow us to validate the data into our backend, right? So let's install these. Now, because we are going to use TypeScript, we need to install the types for Express as well as Node. So let's first install these dev dependencies. And then the first one is going to be TypeScript itself, and then we need types for Express, so our types/Express, and then we also need types for Node, so our types/Node. Good. And now everything is okay. The only thing we need to add here is a package that will allow us to run our TypeScript project. So my favorite one for simple projects like this is called TSX. You can install it either globally or as a dev dependency. I already have it installed globally, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So it's npm install-gen, and then the name of the package is TSX. So TSX, like this. And this is going to install this TSX package for us globally. Now we can clear the terminal and then get to our package.json. So the first I'm going to do is, I don't want us to use the required syntax for import. We're rather going to use ES6 import statement. So in your package.json, I'm going to add a type called model, and under our script, we are going to add a script for running our project. So the script is going to be a dev script, and then it's going to run tsx watch, and then the path for this tsx watch is going to be src/index.ts. So all that this means is we are asking the tsx package that we installed to watch our src/index.ts file, right? So we have to create that file, and it has to be in first an src directory, and then within this directory, let's create an index.ts. So let's put a print statement here, like, and then try to run this project and see if it's going to work. So npm run dev, and realize that we see our hello world, which means that our TypeScript is getting compiled. Now realize we don't have any tsconfig.json. If you are familiar with TypeScript, realize most TypeScript projects have tsconfig.json, and then they either have a dist folder where the compiled JavaScript is going to be stored. Now this is a project that doesn't focus fully on TypeScript. I'm just running the TypeScript files, right, with tsx. In an actual project, we didn't want to do that. You add a start script, and then you also add a tsconfig, and then compile your TypeScript to JavaScript. Now that's a little bit above the scope of this project or this video. So we are going to focus on clean architecture and then using the tsx to compile our TypeScript. So within this source directory, this is where we are going to define our directories and everything about our project. Typical clean architecture project, what you have is you have a directory called features, and that is going to include all the features that your app has, right? And in this particular app, we have just one feature, which is the to-do feature itself. So let's create a directory called features. An example of this is, let's assume if you are building an e-commerce backend, you may have the cart feature, the product feature, maybe the checkout feature, or any other feature related to e-commerce, right? And in this case, we have just one feature, which is the to-do feature. So I'm going to create the to-do app in this features directory. Now, when it comes to clean architecture, right, everything is centered around layers. So we have three main layers when it comes to clean architecture, and then they are the domain, data, and then interface or presentation. Now, an easy way to understand these layers is to think about them like directories. So let's create some directories within our to-do feature. And the first one is going to be domain, and then we're going to have data, and we're going to have interface. Right, so these are going to be the layers of our app. Now, the interface is where we will have our controllers and then routes. When it comes to domain, we are going to have something we call use case, repository, and then entities. When it comes to the data, we are going to have anything related to our database in the data directory. So within the domain, we are going to have other subdirectories. Let's create our entities, and then we're going to create our use case and then repository. Right, so these are going to be the directories within the domain. And for the first time, it might seem a little bit complicated. Why is a to-do app having these unnecessary directories when we could just put everything in one file? But as time goes on, you get to know why we are segmenting everything this way. Now, in the data, we are going to have another directory called repository, and then we are going to have our database itself. Right, now the repository in the data and the repository in the domain are almost the same, so they have this kind of relationship, which we'll look at in the coming videos. Now, in our interface, we are going to have controllers and then a file called routes. So in this case, to do routes, and this is going to be the directory structure of our to-do app. So our interface is the first layer, right, of our app, which means that if any request comes to our to-do feature, it's going to first go to the interface, and then from the interface, we are going to enter into a domain layer and then the data layer. So that's going to be the flow of request and then response. And in the next video, we are going to take a closer look into each of these layers, what they entail, and then what we are supposed to do with them. And if you want to learn more about these layers, subscribe, and if you like today's video, don't forget to hit like as well. And I'll see you in the next one.